Welcome back to the channel, Adventures Through Climate Change with your host, Trevor Snyder. That is me. And thank you for tuning in where we're taking an armchair approach, meaning I'm not leaving this office at all. You know, I might go someplace somewhat local if you guys convince me to do that. I live in Central Florida. But no, I'm taking an armchair approach, meaning we're watching other people's videos. So I'd like to give all those people the credit for the videos when we watch them. I am just consolidating those videos, trying to take them from both sides of the aisle. And obviously, I have a ton of biases, which many of you like to point out, which is fine. Is fine. It's based on my experience, what I believe, and I do think the Earth and how we live in it is very fragile. I just don't think our influence is as abundant as many do. You know, I don't think money's going to solve the problem. I think what I personally think that the next big issue we should be considering or figuring out is, when we go through the Kuiper Belt, June and December, when's the next big meteor or asteroid or whatever going to hit us? Because we get the meteor showers, we get in the tiny little things, we see them, we know what's happening. We just haven't had a global collision like that, or something, we're on a grand scale, like a major earthquake to create a tsunami that's, going to wipe out Florida, which would be a complete bummer. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this anymore. That's the more type of stuff that, so I know every video I have to constantly clarify because a lot of people haven't seen my prior videos. And if you start from the beginning, we've went through a lot of videos. Okay. So what we have going today, and I don't know, I might have to adjust the sound and whatnot, is turning human waste into renewable energy. Why not, right? Why not? We've talked about all this other stuff that's destroying the earth and whatnot. This is Undecided with Matt Farrell, which, shoot, I'm not going to say I agree with him all the time because I don't. And I'm not going to say I disagree with him all the time, but it is more frequent. So, but he has some great videos, so credit to him, and let's get into it.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare. When it comes to renewable energy, solar, wind, and hydro keep coming up as number one. But what about number two? Literally. Now I'm talking about, well, poop. There's a rich carbon neutral resource that we could tap into, turning crap into energy instead of flushing it down the toilet. It could be used as a coal alternative to sequester carbon, strengthen concrete, and more.
Wow.
There's an old technology that's starting to make a splash and might
We
change
could just
the
live in our
game
poop.
too. Let's see if we can come to a decision on turning waste into energy and if it's worth it. I'm Matt Farrell. Welcome to Undecided.
Yeah, buddy.
Always looking for clean energy in any source we can. Solar, wind, crops, even
Yeah.
currents at the bottom of the sea. Trying to get more and more creative to find something that really stands out. A couple of months ago, a fan of the channel put me in contact with a company that's doing just that, in a way I was not expecting. What if we could turn good old number two into a resource for generating energy and producing products that we use every single day, all
Absolutely.
while cleaning up the environment? Sounds like an idea that doesn't stink. This was a topic right at my alley. Usually we're talking about new technologies, but this tech has been around since 1913. So what gives? Why are we still literally flushing away renewable energy instead of taking recycling to a whole new level? Now, I'd argue that there are three unavoidable things in this world: debt,
Bureaucrats.
taxes, and bathroom breaks. It doesn't matter how much you hate creating waste, even the most hardcore recycler has to go sometime. Everybody poops. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that the vast majority of you haven't given much thought to what happens to your waste after you flush. I know I have. But the trick of the porcelain throne is just the beginning. After our waste travels through the sewage system to the wastewater treatment plant,
Cool.
they separate the solids from the water.
California
In
Academy.
rural areas, it travels to a septic tank where the water leaches out and the sludge is removed to be treated elsewhere. The water is treated through an intensive process before being discharged into local bodies of water. The leftover solids get taken care of in one of three ways. You can incinerate it, which is pretty much what it sounds like. You burn it. Now, all those materials and its energy literally go up in smoke and into our atmosphere. The second way is to landfill it. In the landfill, those biosolids break down into methane and CO2, depending on whether oxygen is present. If there is no oxygen, anaerobic digestion takes place, generating CO2 and methane. If there is oxygen present, aerobic digestion occurs, generating CO2. The third way, and the most common, is to apply those biosolids to agricultural fields. About 50% of biosolids produced in the US are used for agriculture to grow products for animal feed. So human waste is used to grow products to feed farm animals like dairy cows. The problem with sewage management is that it never stops. Everybody poops about a pound per day, give or take. Multiply that by several billion people, 365 days a year, and you can start to get a sense of the magnitude of the problem. In the US alone, we produce an estimated 5 to 13 dry tons of sewage sludge. That's human waste, which is generally thrown
Some
back
more
into
than
the soil.
others.
Add the water content, and that's billions of gallons of waste every single year, and it's never going to stop. Even after treatment, the final biosolids can still have contaminant issues. To put this politely, sometimes things come out the same way they went in. And this doesn't just mean corn, it also includes things like detergents, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and forever chemicals like PFAS.
Yeah.
Now, this becomes an even bigger problem when these solids are reused for fertilizer, because those contaminants are put right back into the crops, and the cycle continues. Multiple dairy farms in Maine have already had to close production because their milk had high levels of PFAS, leading to a loss of income and public trust. Now, as you can imagine, this type of waste isn't great for the environment either.
No.
The water content is usually treated and discharged into water bodies, but if the water isn't treated properly, the solids, metals, and other contaminants can choke out wildlife habitats and fisheries. The waste is nutrient rich. If it's dumped in a lake without treatment, it can lead to overgrowth of certain bacteria and algae,
Ugh.
which can also disrupt the natural habitat of aquatic life. Then there's the energy consumption part of this to consider. Wastewater treatment plants are estimated to consume more than 30 terawatt hours per year of electricity, and that's about $2 billion in annual electric costs. And that's likely not from very clean sources.
So what's the solution?
Electricity usually takes up about 25 to 40% of wastewater treatment plants' annual budget, and those needs are likely to rise with population growth and tightening water quality requirements. Biosolids also have a greenhouse gas problem. As I mentioned before, they break down in the landfill to methane and CO2. The problem there is that methane is 25 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas, although it does have a shorter lifespan. Municipal solid waste landfills are the third largest source of human related methane emissions in the US. Throughout history, humans have simply moved bowel movements out of sight and out of smell range. And some of these sewage disposal methods have been in practice for nearly 100 years, mostly because nobody's come up with a better way to deal with poop. There's got to be a better way. And that's where this old 1913 technology comes in, and the company that's taking this old idea and commercializing it to innovate and change their entire business model. But before we
Please
get into
make
that,
money off of
before
it.
we get directly to it, if you want to learn how to innovate and set your company or business apart, you might want to check out the Creative Business Model Innovation class at Skillshare. If you're anything like me, then you like learning new things. Skillshare has built an incredible online learning community with thousands of classes to learn new skills in a wide array of topics. For me, I've been trying to optimize how I work and to be more productive. And one of the classes I found super helpful is Thomas Frank's Real Productivity, How to Build Habits That Last. I often
He does this for a living, so obviously, I mean, Skillshare. I mean, he's got to have his advertisers and whatnot. I have my video for fun, so we'll listen to some of his ads and stuff. I apologize, guys.
The blog is available with subtitles in multiple languages. The first 1,000 people to use the link or my code Undecided with Matt Farrell will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks to Skillshare and to all of you for supporting the channel. Now back to this old technology that's being used to change an industry. Hydrothermal carbonization, also known as subcritical water or hot compressed water carbonization. It was first identified in 1913 by German Nobel Prize chemist Dr. Bergius. However, right after this find, the 20th century had other plans for Germany, including a world war, the rise of Nazism, another world war, the breakup of a wall, and reunification of East and West Germany. With all this turmoil, it wasn't until 2006 that it got its foothold at Max Planck Institute for Colloidal Science in Potsdam, Germany. This waste management alternative has been seeing a surge in popularity in recent years. I had a chance to talk to Dan Spracklin from Somax, where they're commercializing the technology.
What hydrothermal carbonization, or HTC, is essentially the most simple way of thinking about it is an industrial-sized pressure cooker, but it runs continuously. So it's not like you would have at home where you have maybe cooking some chicken in a pressure cooker or a crock pot where you do it in a batch. We do it consistently. And so what happens is we apply heat and pressure to the material. Applying pressure puts water into a subcritical state.
When you put water into a subcritical state, that means it starts to boil, but the pressure won't let it turn into steam. This all happens with 10 to 50 bars of pressure at about 180 to 250 degrees Celsius. This is the perfect temperature to have that water act as a reagent, meaning it sets off a whole chain of chemical reactions which separate the larger molecules in the mix.
What we're doing essentially is taking large molecules. First we chop them up, and then we pull off some oxygen atoms and some hydrogen atoms. to make a more stable compound and smaller molecules. And then the last step is we recombine those molecules to make useful products. And those products are essentially coal. So we're mimicking the way that Mother Nature formed coal. Typically, Earth does it over a period of hundreds of millions of years. So coal is typically about 250 to 360 million years in formation. And we're able to do this with sewage sludge in less than an hour.
The resulting product doesn't just look like coal.
Crazy.
It's a coal alternative. The fuel value is similar to that of lignite coal, and treatment plants have been using these solids to co-fire in coal handling infrastructure. In spite of its origins, the high temperature has killed all bacteria and other biological threats, making the new fuel sanitary. As part of this process, the solid phase of HTC produces a liquor-rich process water as a byproduct that is chock full of VOCs, formic acid, acetic acid, phenols, and other fun derivatives. Yum. So what do we do with this HTC process liquid? Well, this is where
Fun
derivatives
derivatives.
can be used alongside anaerobic digestion to produce biogas. That's right, this liquor byproduct can be used as a fuel in itself. This is why HTC has been suggested as an intermediate step for producing biodiesel. Certain
Wow.
governments, including Germany and Italy, heavily subsidize the practice of generating biogas from wastewater plants. Europe's biogas production from industrial and urban sewage sludge increased by 40% between 2013 and 2017. So how much energy can you actually get from this? And does it actually balance out with the energy needed to make it happen? As with everything, it depends. When it comes to sewage in particular, HTC shows some strong energy potential. The energy required of the sewage sludge's drying process is reduced by up to 62% from normal drying techniques.
Ooh. This is an ad we don't need.
Build custom industrial machine.
Bam.
Traditionally, wastewater treatment plants consume a tremendous amount of energy, and that's a huge chunk of their operating
It's true.
Those savings can add up quickly. Some studies even say that the economic benefit from the hydrochar production for energy recovery has exceeded the profits from biogas production per ton of sewage sludge. And translated, the plant can produce more biogas, possibly up to 5%, while saving on energy costs. The best part, the source of energy is always plentiful. You don't have to wait for the sun to shine or the wind to blow to collect that energy. You can treat waste 24/7, 365 days a year, and the material will never stop flowing. You can also make some pretty cool things from the HTC process besides coal and biogas. There's some diamonds to find in the roughage here. One promising application is to replace sand and concrete with the solid products of HTC. The construction industry is already infamous for their negative environmental impact. They contribute a whopping 40% of the world's energy-related CO2 emissions.
They also house
Partly
people.
because they require a ton of virgin materials to produce things like brick and concrete. By using the solid products of HTC, they no longer need to mine these materials. In 2019, engineers from Australia's Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology tested bricks made up of 25% biosolids and found that these hybrids cut down energy use by nearly half during the firing process. Companies just like Somax are working with sewage sludge to replace sand in concrete mixes. At just 10% replacement, you could offset all of the emissions from cement production. We're not just recycling here either. Incorporating biosolids into construction materials is a powerful carbon sequestration tool. These companies can use biosolids to offset sand consumption while also sequestering the carbon from the biosolids for thousands of years in the concrete. You can break it, reuse it, toss it. No matter what, the CO2 isn't going to come magically back out. Also, remember that biosolid fertilizer problem that I mentioned earlier?
Mm-hmm.
With HTC in the mix, you can create a carbon-neutral fertilizer from that hydrochar. Only this time, you can get rid of that pesky PFAS. This is no small feat because PFAS is called the forever chemical for a reason. They're made up of carbon-fluorine bonds, which are one of the strongest bonds around. That makes it great for weather-resistant clothing and Teflon, but not so much for the environment. But for HTC, it doesn't give a crap. You're breaking those molecules apart and getting rid of those potential harmful pollutants at the same time with some energy generation to boot. That pollutant-destroying aspect of HTC is also making a good candidate for making another important resource, drinking water. Now, just hear me out here.
No.
HTC is creating a carbon product.
You lost me, Matt.
Activated chemically
No.
or thermally, which opens up the pores to filtration, which means we can have activated carbon, which is a crucial product of filtering drinking water. Now remember, HTC is literally tearing molecules apart and sticking them back together. On a chemical level, the end product is no different from what you started with. It's essentially a giant autoclave.
And that's what we're essentially doing, is acting as a large autoclave. So I would never do this and grab, sewage sludge or biosolids, but I have no problem going and grabbing hydrochar, smelling it, I don't recommend eating it. It won't kill you, but I'm sure it doesn't taste well. But yeah, it's completely safe material.
Depending on what you use for feedstock, HTC can pretty much make everything from supercapacitor materials to anode materials for fuel cells to energy to syngas to steel to concrete and cement. The
I'm
general
I'm on
process is
board
the
with that.
same. Toss it in, cook it, and bam. At the end, you have carbon. It's like the world's largest and grossest easy bake oven. An economic study in Switzerland found that the HTC treatment per dry ton of digested sewage sludge with industrial sized plants cost about $600 to $700, which compares to current sewage sludge treatment costs of about $660 to $1,000. Similar studies in Germany reported that HTC reduces the cost involved in sludge treatment and disposal. Treating biosolids with HTC can not only reduce energy costs, but at the end of it, you literally have less crap that you need to get rid of, which really puts a dent in those operational costs. SOMAX
He
is
giggles every time he
significantly
says
saving
crap
firsthand.
In the case of our
or
project in
poop.
Zanesville, Pennsylvania, we're able to produce 153% of the energy demand of that treatment plant. So it goes from being the largest consumer of
Wow.
energy in that municipality to a net energy producer. And we're going to produce 153% of the energy demand. That extra
Wow.
energy is going back out onto the grid to run things like City Hall, streetlights, stoplights. It'll run the police station and the fire station. We provide them with electricity 24/7.
So, if this is such a great system, why haven't we been hearing more about it? Besides the fact we're talking about it. Now, Google the studies on HTC, and you'll soon see how much it's exploded across academia in the past few years. However, the lab scale applications are still catching up to real life applications, and with it, the real life funding.
It had not attracted the investment that, say, oil and gas gets or other, solar. You're not seeing hundreds of billions of dollars invested in this because A, the investors don't know. B, even the so-called sustainability or carbon experts aren't aware of this process because it hasn't really made its way out of academia into the real world. And by building this plant in Pennsylvania, the first one in North America, we're bringing it out into the world to make people aware of it. So this was, to us, it's really a coming out party. We've been operating in stealth mode until October of last year, when there was a public announcement that our technology was selected by the U.S. Department of Energy as the technology that should be implemented at small and medium wastewater treatment plants across the country.
While HTC has a lot of technical aspects to consider, the biggest challenge right now may actually be regulatory. Remember, this isn't just a plumbing issue, it's a public health issue. HTC requires biomass, and biomass comes with quite a bit of red tape. This red tape is due to the fact that poop is a biohazard and can harbor disease, but the legal paperwork can take years to process.
So even we've got the stamp of approval from the U.S. Department of Energy to implement this process at wastewater treatment plants across the United States. In Pennsylvania, it's taken us 3 years to get the permit to even try this process out at a wastewater treatment plant.
If you tell people about the environmental value,
Wow.
back it up with the economic benefits, and have leaders lead by example, that's when the magic happens. It may not be polite conversation, but talking about the literal power of crap is the first step. If you're still surprised by biosolids and how much they can do, you're not alone. Just ask Dan. One of the final questions I do want to ask you is kind of like, what is one of the most surprising things about this type of work in your experience? Like, what is the most thing that's caught you kind of off guard that you weren't expecting? Is there anything?
The most surprising thing is that everything works. So we have a little game we play with in our lab here. Is on Wednesday we have a will carbonize Wednesday, and so we just take off the wall things and say will carbonize. So I brought in some T-shirts that said they had holes in them and stuff. So we cut up the T-shirts. We put it through this process. Guess what? They carbonize. So it's
Wow.
everything from macadamia nuts to sunflower seeds to
Anything organic.
We've actually processed flowers whole, and even carcasses. So
In biochemistry, and I'm sorry to cut this guy off, man, I'm so bad at my timing, but in like biochemistry, that's, the study of carbon, which is, because it's the component to make that we consider that makes life, and so he's carbonizes it through pressure and heat. And I was gonna say, like, that water, he said, you pressurize it so much it gets so hot, and I mean, you could see, like, so say like you live in Minnesota or Wisconsin where it gets really cold, or North Dakota, and you got your pipes, and you got the water, and it's slowly dropping from 40 to 30, and at 32 degrees it wants to freeze, right? Wants to freeze. But it doesn't have anywhere to go because that pipe's holding it in. So it stays at probably like 33 because of the pressure. The pressure heats it up to the point where it won't freeze. And then the temperature outside drops, to 31, 32, 30, 30, 29, 28. And it's still only 32 or 33 degrees inside there because it has not frozen yet, right? It's not frozen, it's still liquid. And then as soon as that pressure, because that's what the pipe is doing, it's creating pressure around that liquid inside there. As soon as that pressure dissipates from the pipe exploding in one area or whatever, that the temperature of that water will freeze instantly. I mean, that water will all of a sudden realize that it is supposed to be ice, and it will turn into ice right away. Like, because that pressure was the only thing that was maintaining that temperature. It's kind of unreal. Like, when you think about the weird things that happen in life and how that type of stuff works. Anyways, I wanted to stop it and mention it before when they were talking about that, when they were talking about pulling the water out and drinking it. I'm like, no, I'd probably drink it. Look, if it's clean water, look, give me some. I'll probably still boil it or something, or I don't know. The thought of it, I don't like the thought of it, but it is part of it is you got to get that stuff out of your head if you want clean water in the future, right?
The unique thing about that is the whole thing will carbonize. The bones will remain the shape, but once you touch the bone, it just goes into powder. So huge surprises for me about the raw sludge converted into hydrochar. Actually, how well it's acted as an activated carbon to filter out pollutants. That was surprising to me. I thought, that will never work, but yeah, it did.
For me, the decision seems pretty clear. HTC is a great two birds, one stone solution.
Crazy.
We have to deal with our crap, literally. Why not get some extra use out of it? Academia and industry leaders like Dan Spracklin agree. This tech has the potential to make a difference now. The question seems to be how to get over that gulf between the theoretical and full-scale application. Simply put, it may be time to carbonize or get off the pot. So are you still undecided? What do you think about HTC and poop power? Is it number one or still number two? Jump in the comments and let me know. If you have knowledge of this or you work in the industry, please share your experience so we can learn more together. And thanks as always to my patrons. All of your direct support really helps with.
Thank you to his patrons so that
Speaking of
so that he could make that video so that we could listen to it and critique it in our own way, because that's what we do, is critique and put our opinion into it. And actually, I think it's phenomenal. I've always thought that there was something that we should be doing more in waste treatment, because that it's disgusting. And if you've ever been even close to a waste treatment plant, I feel bad for the houses that are close by, because you can smell it, and you can, there's got to be a better way, because they're burning it now anyways. So rather than just burn it, it's like put it through an autoclave, basically, like you said. It's interesting. You can carbonize it and then do whatever you need or want to with that carbon. Right? So, I think it's super cool. Now, have I investigated any of the negative effects? I have not. So I'm just going based off this one video. I hadn't even heard of it before, actually. And I can't remember if somebody sent it to me or they put it in one of the comments about this one. But I thought I should check it out. So, Matt's always he's always very informative. Usually, I'm not sure I always agree with him, but he just kind of just talks about different things, and he doesn't inject his opinion too much. Although the videos go the direction of his opinion, man, that's how they all go for all of us, right? So I want to thank you guys for watching, and if you have any questions for me, just put it in the comments, or mention what I should watch in the future. Remember, I am crazy busy right now. I took on that job, so I'm just doing this the best I can, and I try to get to people's comments. I usually read them, but if it's on my phone, I usually don't type out a reply. I'm sorry, it just takes too long. Although I should just do the voice to text, right? So I might do that in the future, and if you get a weird looking message, it's probably because I didn't read it after I said it, and gosh, that autocorrect, it's fantastic, but it also sucks. So with that being said, make sure you subscribe to his channel. Let's see, what was that again? Oh, let's see here.
Which, be sure to check out one of these videos.
Undecided with Matt Farrell. That's right. Undecided with Matt Farrell. And, I wouldn't mind a subscription myself. Lay down a like, and I hope to catch you in the next video.